What's up everyone, Mike Gray here again with another video. Today we're going to talk more about black and whites, and instead of looking at old work, we're going to look at some more recent work that I made with black and whites. And if you're one of those photographers that believe black and white photography is boring or dead, then you can leave the video now. So if you haven't noticed already, I really enjoy black and white photography. I think black and white photography really is the backbone of what photography is today. I believe more photographers should be shooting in black and white simply because there's more of a story in black and white images. Now, don't get me wrong, color images are cool. Shooting color images are great. But there's something about the blacks, there's something about the whites in black and white images that just make them iconic. I believe photographers should be shooting more in black and white simply because it'll just make you a better photographer, point blank period. And I say that because you're not worried about the color in the image as being a distraction, and you'll be more focused on your composition. You'll be more focused on the subject matter of what you're shooting because you don't have color to fill in those empty gaps. You really have to have a story, some type of narrative that's going on inside the image for it to be interesting. That's why I think black and white photography is superior than color. Like I said before, we're gonna take a look at some more black and white images. This work is newer than the previous video, so what you're looking at is more current of how I'm shooting right now. So we're at the part of the video where I ask you to like, share, and subscribe, and then you don't go do it. Thank you. So that we are all clear on what camera I was using for the making of these images, I was using this camera here. This is the Canon 20D. I'm pretty sure the camera came out 20 some odd years ago. Why I decided to use a 20-year-old camera, that is beyond me. I just like doing weird. So why I decided to use an older camera, I don't know what it is, but as Canon progressed in their technology, the sensors got better, definitely. But that film look, or that natural grainy look, naturally progressed away. So I didn't want my images to come out looking so, I think the term is like so techie, if I can say that. But basically the older cameras, aka the older sensors, they just look better in my opinion. So a lot of times I'll use an older camera because I'm looking for a certain look out of a lot of the stuff, and you know, the Canon 20D is giving me that look that I like. So this is why that's really the thought process of why I used it. The lens I used for these images were the 17-35 2.8 crop sensor lens by Tamron. In these four images, my overall thought process for these four images were to show some type of texture or movement, and the only real way that I was able to achieve that is by dragging my shutter, waiting for the right lighting situation. So the focus on today was really movement, and I wanted to show movement in a lot of aspects of downtown. Starting with our first image, this is Comcast 2 on John F. Kennedy Boulevard. There's a lot going on in this image. I'm gonna try to break it down to you. Now, in the way that the city is positioned, the sun does not set over John F. Kennedy. It really sets over Market Street. So you'll get a lot of, like, you know, you'll get a lot of those long shadow sunsets on Market Street versus John F. Kennedy. Now, when we look at this image, we do see some shadows at the lower end of the frame. You know, when you see the people, you see their shadows being drug out. That's because the sun was shining on the corner of the building. Now, me personally, I've never seen the sun shine on that corner of that building like that ever before. And, you know, I was in the right place at the right time, and I got kind of lucky in this situation. But I was able to capture this image and really present this image in this manner. And I wanted to make sure that I showed the whole thing entirely. So I wanted to show edge to edge this entire image. So I wanted everything in focus. So when I look at my metadata tells me that my f-stop was cranked up to f32. I wanted everything in focus. That was my big thing. And also remember, I'm in the process of showing movement in the image. So I'm dragging my shutter. My shutter is saying that I was at 1/3, 1 over 3 seconds. It wasn't 3 seconds. Oh my gosh, I might be reading this wrong. So here's my settings for this image. ISO is at 100, f-stop is at f32, and my shutter speed is at 1 1/3 of a second. So basically, I am wide open in regards to my shutter speed. I'm letting in so much light, letting time pass, but I'm really stopped down on my f-stop at f32. And believe it or not, I personally hate tripods. I don't like them when I go out shooting. So I took this image handheld because I'm not using a tripod. I just don't like it. I feel like tripods get in the way while you're shooting, so I opt to not use them most of the time unless I'm doing talking head pieces like this. But nevertheless, I didn't use a tripod for this image. Shutter speed is pretty slow and I got steady hands. Talk to me nice. Yeah, I really liked how the sun was bouncing off the building, and it was a very unique moment that I was able to capture. When I took this, I initially took this in color, converted it to black and white through Lightroom, and I really dodged and burned the heck out of this image, because there's no way that I was not going to have the textures in the skies to be shown, the textures in the building to be shown, all the way down to the textures in the shadows to being shown without properly dodging and burning this image the way I did. When we move on to our next image is kind of, well, it's not kind of, our next image is a smaller moment in our big picture. So our big picture is of, you know, Comcast 2 on John F. Kennedy. The smaller moment is this image here of this delivery guy delivering packages. Now, when we go back to our big picture, we can see the truck, we see it's there, but we also see other things, a lot of movement going on. When we jump to this image, now this creates its own little narrative, even though it's in the same walking distance, probably like 10 feet apart from each other when I took these pictures, but they have two different feelings. And that's the crazy thing about black and white. Black and white can do that. It's a really interesting texture to look at, just really nice. And I love how the contrast of the streets pop and then the contrast on the building separates everything. This is more on like the abstract side of black and white photography. You can kind of make out what's going on because of the movement, but this is very abstract, and this is one of my favorite images, 100%. And lastly, this one has no movement in it. This one I would consider as a texture. You know, it's a sign with a shoe hanging and what looks to be a pure white background. The reason why I like this so much is because of all the textures that you see inside the image. There's so many different variants of the same thing in this image. Like there's so many different types of gray that's happening on this sign. There's so many types of blacks that are happening with the pole, and there's so many different types of white happening with the shoe, minus the entirely white background. And now that I'm looking at all four of the images together, there is this like diagonal movement happening with everything. Everything's moving from, and this is in my opinion, this is moving from like this left to right, you know, situation. Everything is moving from left to right and how you look at it. And I really like that, you know, a lot of leading lines in the same direction. That's how you know I'm taken by the same photographer, because it's the same idea in each image. But yeah, no, there's a sense of direction in each image going from left to right. Hope you enjoyed the video of me talking about 4 black and white images that I recently took. Some time has passed, definitely, from me shooting that. Work got a little busy, so I had to go do that work stuff, and now we're back to end the video. So catch you on the next one.